The gallery was closing. Rain hammered against the windows. And there she stood, a vision in a black dress, blonde hair cascading like liquid sunshine, staring at the one painting Margaret had sworn she'd never sell. 28 years old, confident, beautiful. Everything Margaret had forgotten she could still want. Their eyes met across the empty room, and in that instant, Margaret felt something she thought had died with her marriage. Possibility. The young woman smiled. Margaret's careful, controlled world began to crack. Margaret had stopped seeing herself years ago. At 56, she had become invisible, a ghost haunting her own gallery, her own life. The divorce had been finalized on a Tuesday. 23 years of marriage dissolved in a judge's signature. Robert had left her for someone younger, predictably. She'd built walls around the wound, brick by careful brick. The gallery was her sanctuary. Other people's art, other people's passion. She curated beauty but no longer believed she deserved to touch it. Then Sophia walked in on that rainy Thursday evening, 10 minutes before closing. Margaret noticed her immediately, impossible not to. She moved through the space like she owned it, studying each piece with an intensity that made Margaret's breath catch. Young women came to the gallery often, usually scrolling their phones, taking selfies with the paintings. Sophia was different. She stopped in front of Awakening, Margaret's favorite piece, an abstract explosion of crimson and gold that the artist had created after leaving her husband. Margaret had bought it the day it was painted, saw herself in every brushstroke. "This one," Sophia said without turning around, her voice like warm honey. "This one knows what it means to break free." Margaret approached slowly, professionally. "It's not for sale." Sophia turned then, and Margaret felt the impact of those green eyes like a physical touch. "Everything's for sale, eventually. We just haven't found the right price." She was younger than Margaret had thought. Late 20s, perhaps. Confidence radiated from her like heat. She wore a simple black dress that suggested wealth without shouting it, and her blonde hair caught the gallery lights, creating a halo effect that made Margaret think of Renaissance paintings. "I'm Sophia Chen." She extended her hand. "I'm new in town. Just accepted a position at the university art history department." Margaret shook her hand, felt the firmness of her grip, the warmth. "Margaret Sterling. I own the gallery, I know." Sophia's smile was knowing, amused. "I've been researching you. Your eye for emerging artists is legendary. The way you rebuilt this space after your divorce, impressive." Margaret felt exposed, vulnerable. "You've done your homework. I always do." Sophia moved closer, and Margaret caught her scent something expensive, complex. "I'm looking for a mentor. Someone who understands art not just as objects to sell, but as pieces of soul." The rain intensified outside, drumming against the windows like impatient fingers. Margaret should have said no, should have cited the late hour, made polite excuses, sent this dangerous young woman back into the storm. Instead, she heard herself say, "Would you like some wine? I have a bottle in my office." Sophia's smile was radiant, victorious. "I thought you'd never ask." As Margaret locked the gallery door and led Sophia toward the back, she felt something unfamiliar stirring in her chest. Later, she would recognize it as hope. In that moment, it felt terrifyingly like desire. They talked until midnight. One bottle of wine became two. Sophia sat in the leather chair across from Margaret's desk. Shoes kicked off, legs curled beneath her, and spoke about art with a passion that made Margaret remember who she used to be. "You stopped creating," Sophia observed, her eyes too perceptive. "I found your early work, the sculptures you made in graduate school. They were raw, honest. What happened?" Margaret felt the familiar shame rise. Life happened, marriage. Robert thought art was a hobby, not a career. I convinced myself that curating was enough, but it isn't. Not a question. A statement of fact delivered with surgical precision. No, Margaret admitted, the wine making her honest. It isn't. Sophia leaned forward, her blonde hair falling across her shoulder. What are you afraid of? Everything. Margaret wanted to say: failure, irrelevance, desire, you. I'm 56 years old, Margaret said instead. The world doesn't want art from women my age. Bullshit. Sophia's bluntness was refreshing, shocking. The world is desperate for art from women who've lived, who've survived. Your ex-husband took your confidence, not your talent. The observation landed like a blow. Margaret felt tears threaten, blinked them back. When had someone last looked at her this intently, seen her this clearly? I should go, Sophia said, though she made no move to leave. It's late, stay. The word escaped before Margaret could stop it. I mean the rain. It's still pouring. I could call you a car. Or, Sophia said slowly, you could show me more of your collection. The pieces you keep private. Margaret's private collection was in her loft apartment above the gallery. Inviting Sophia upstairs would be crossing a line, acknowledging the current humming between them. The sensible thing would be to call that car, send her away. Pretend this evening had been nothing but professional networking. Margaret had been sensible for 56 years. Follow me, she said. The loft was Margaret's truth-exposed brick. Art covering every wall, works in progress scattered on tables. It was messy, personal, alive in ways the pristine gallery below could never be. Margaret watched Sophia move through the space, touching things gently, reverently. You're still creating, Sophia breathed, stopping before a half-finished sculpture. Margaret, this is extraordinary. It was a female form, abstract but unmistakable, emerging from rough stone. Margaret had started it the week after the divorce papers were signed, working late into the night, hands bloody, heartbreaking. It's nothing. Therapy, maybe. Sophia turned to her, and the look in her eyes made Margaret's knees weak. It's everything. It's you breaking free. Like the painting downstairs. She crossed the distance between them. Margaret's heart hammered. This was insane. This girl was young enough to be her daughter. This was professional suicide, personal recklessness, everything she'd spent years avoiding. Sophia reached up and touched Margaret's face, her fingers cool against flesh sagging. Tell me to leave, she whispered. If you want me to go, tell me now. Margaret couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, couldn't remember a single reason why this was wrong. Sophia kissed her. The world tilted, reformed. Margaret tasted wine and possibility and youth and danger. Sophia's hands were in her hair, pulling her closer, and Margaret surrendered to it, to the wanting, the need, the terrifying beauty of feeling alive again. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Sophia smiled against her lips. There you are, she whispered. I've been looking for you all night. Morning arrived too quickly. Margaret woke to sunlight streaming through her loft windows and Sophia's blonde hair spread across the pillow beside her. Panic seized her immediately. What had she done? Sophia stirred, opened those impossibly green eyes, and smiled. Good morning, beautiful. Beautiful. When had anyone last called her that? This is insane, Margaret said, sitting up, pulling the sheet around herself. You're young enough to be my daughter? You work at the university. I have a reputation to maintain. Sophia propped herself on one elbow, unfazed. I'm 28, not a child. And I don't care about your reputation. I care about you. You don't even know me. I know you're talented, wounded, and terrified of wanting anything for yourself. I know you hide behind your gallery walls, pretending other people's art is enough. I know last night was the first time in years you felt truly alive. Every word was true. Every word hurt. "This can't happen again," Margaret said. Though the words felt like lies even as she spoke them, Sophia studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Okay, if that's what you want." She rose from the bed, gloriously unself-conscious in her nakedness, and began gathering her clothes. "But before I go, I'm going to say something, and you're going to listen." Margaret waited, watching her dress, memorizing every movement. "You deserve to be desired, Margaret. You deserve to create, to take up space, to be seen. Your ex-husband convinced you that youth equals value, that your best years are behind you. He was wrong. You're magnificent. And whether or not we ever do this again, I need you to know that someone sees it. I see it." She finished buttoning her dress, slipped on her shoes, then crossed to where Margaret sat frozen on the bed. She kissed her forehead, gentle and devastating. "Thank you for last night," Sophia whispered. "It meant more than you know." Then she was gone, and Margaret was alone with her racing thoughts, an aching body, and the terrifying realization that one night hadn't been enough. Would never be enough. She spent the day trying to work, to focus on inventory and upcoming exhibitions, but her mind kept drifting back to Sophia's hands, Sophia's mouth, Sophia's words. "You deserve to be desired." At 3 o'clock, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Dinner tonight?" No pressure. Just two art lovers sharing a meal. Margaret stared at the message for 5 full minutes. Every rational thought screamed at her to decline, to end this before it became something. Before she became vulnerable. Before she could be heard again. Her fingers moved across the screen. 7 o'clock. "I'll cook." Sophia arrived with flowers, peonies, Margaret's favorites, though she'd never mentioned it. They ate pasta and drank wine and talked about everything except what had happened the night before. Sophia made her laugh, really laugh, for the first time in years. Made her feel clever and interesting and seen. After dinner, Sophia helped with dishes and their hands touched under the running water. The electricity was immediate, undeniable. "I should go," Sophia said. Not moving. "You should," Margaret agreed. Not releasing her hand Sophia turned off the water, dried her hands carefully, then turned to face Margaret. "Tell me what you want. Not what you think you should want. What you actually want." Margaret looked at this extraordinary young woman who had crashed into her carefully ordered life and detonated everything. She thought about playing it safe, about protection and reputation and age-appropriate behavior. Then she thought about the sculpture upstairs, the woman breaking free from stone. "I want you," Margaret whispered. "I want this. Whatever this is. Even though it terrifies me." Sophia's smile was tender, triumphant. "Good, because I'm not going anywhere. You're stuck with me now. You'll get bored. You'll meet someone your own age, someone without gray hair and history," and Sophia silenced her with a kiss. "I don't want someone my own age. I want you. Your wisdom, your talent, your gorgeous silver hair, your beautiful body, your incredible mind. All of you." Margaret felt something crack open inside her chest, something that had been locked away for decades. It felt like breaking. It felt like healing. "Stay," she said. "Stay tonight. Stay tomorrow. Just ... stay." Sophia pulled her close. "As long as you'll have me." 3 months later, Margaret stood in front of her first solo exhibition in 30 years. The gallery was packed collectors, critics, friends, strangers. But she only had eyes for one person. Sophia stood across the room, radiant in a gold dress, talking animatedly to a potential buyer. She caught Margaret's eye and winked, and Margaret felt that now familiar flutter in her chest. The exhibition was called Emergence. 15 sculptures, each one documenting her journey from invisible to seen, from silent to speaking, from afraid to alive. The centerpiece was the sculpture she'd been working on the night they met, now finished, a woman fully freed from stone, arms raised to the sky, triumphant. "It's powerful work," said Helena Cruz, the most respected art critic in the city. "Honest, raw, there's a vitality here that's extraordinary." What inspired this transformation? Margaret glanced at Sophia, who was now laughing with a group of university professors, completely at ease. "Love," Margaret said simply. "Love and someone who refused to let me hide." Helena followed her gaze, raised an eyebrow. "Well, it agrees with you. This is your best work yet." As the evening progressed, red dots appeared next to pieces. Collectors made offers. Critics took notes. Margaret had forgotten what this felt. Like the validation, yes, but more importantly, the satisfaction of making something true, something that mattered. But it wasn't the success that filled her with joy. It was Sophia's pride, shining from across the room. It was the life they'd built together, messy, unconventional, beautiful. It was waking up next to her every morning and still feeling that spark of wonder that this brilliant young woman had chosen her. It hadn't been easy. Margaret's friends had been skeptical, some openly disapproving. The age gap raised eyebrows everywhere they went. There were difficult conversations about expectations, about futures, about whether this could really last. But Sophia was patient, steady. She showed up every day with the same fierce devotion, the same clear-eyed certainty that what they had was real. And slowly, Margaret learned to believe it too. Later, after the crowds had thinned and the gallery was quiet, Sophia approached with 2 glasses of champagne. "To Emergence," she said, raising her glass. "To you," Margaret corrected, touching her glass to Sophia's. "For seeing me when I'd forgotten how to see myself." Sophia set down her glass and took Margaret's hands. "I have something to ask you, and I need you to really hear me." Margaret's heart stuttered. "Okay, move in with me." "Officially, not just you staying at my place or me staying at yours. Get a place together, build something permanent." Fear rose immediately. "Sophia, you're so young. What if you change your mind? What if the sun doesn't rise tomorrow?" Sophia interrupted gently. "What if the gallery burns down? What if a meteor hits the earth? We can what if ourselves into paralysis, or we can choose to live. I choose to live with you. Do you choose that too?" Margaret looked around her gallery, at her art on the walls, at the life she'd reclaimed. She thought about the woman she'd been 6 months ago, invisible, afraid, convinced her best days were behind her. She looked at Sophia Golden, patient, extraordinary Sophia, and saw their future spread before them. It wouldn't be easy. People would judge. There would be challenges she couldn't predict. But there would also be mornings waking up together, evenings creating side by side, a lifetime of learning to be brave. "Yes," Margaret said, and felt the last of her walls crumble. "Yes, I choose this. I choose you. I choose us." Sophia's smile was radiant. She pulled Margaret into her arms, kissed her in the middle of the gallery, surrounded by art about transformation and freedom and finding yourself when you'd given up looking. Outside, the city sparkled with lights. Inside, 2 women, silver and gold, held each other and chose love over fear, possibility over safety, life over mere existence. Margaret had spent decades believing her story was over. Tonight, she finally understood it was just beginning. Margaret discovered that transformation has no age limit, that desire doesn't expire, that the bravest thing we can do is allow ourselves to be seen, to want, to reach for joy even when it terrifies us. Her story reminds us that it's never too late to break free from the stone that confines us. Never too late to create something beautiful. Never too late to fall in love with another person, with ourselves, with a life we thought we'd lost the right to claim. What walls are you ready to break down? What part of yourself have you been hiding? The world is waiting to see you emerge. Share this story with someone who needs to remember their own power. Comment below with your own story of transformation. And never forget, you are the artist of your own life. Your greatest masterpiece is still ahead of you.